Good morning. Here we are again with Walking in My Shoes. Today's topic is not what we had planned, but in light of some events, it's going to be a little painful for some. I know it is for me personally. We're going to have a little heart to heart about um, suicide is prevalent among our veteran community. It is prevalent among the family members. Um, we don't talk about it. It's like the elephant in the room. Those of us that are faced with it and deal with it and see it, we do kind of know more, but it's just not out there. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's very painful, and it's very real. And this topic, when this morning when Michelle and I were discussing what we were going to do, was going to be about enabling and how we can enable our veterans. So we'll actually talk about that tomorrow. But today, I just feel that we absolutely must talk about as I was online doing research, which is tends to be something we do a lot lately. Came across this. Excuse me for a minute. I came across this article, and I'm not sure who has seen it. I'm not sure who, unfortunately, has seen the graphic side, but U.S. Army veteran, and I'm kind of looking back and forth, so I quote this word for word. Ronnie McNutt. Was 33 years old um, on August 31st. He committed suicide on a live stream on Facebook. What the sad part of the whole thing was, and the tragedy that happened was that morning at 7:32 p.m. that afternoon, I guess that evening, he put a picture and it says, someone in your life needs to hear that they matter, that they are loved, that they have a future. Be the one to tell them. It's disheartening. We don't, when we're angry, we don't tell people they matter. When we're angry, people lose their sense of self worth. I know for me personally, and this is not the easiest thing to share. Um, but for me personally, I had a lot of anger going on in my life. As a first responder, I've seen a lot and done a lot, and it was my job in life to care for people. That's what I did. I took care of them. In January of this year, I got sick. It's been disheartening for me. Um, a lot of answers that we couldn't get, questions we couldn't get answers to. I'm still going through this journey. Long story short, they found that I have an autoimmune disorder, and which I never thought I'd have, which has messed up my entire immune system. Um, and now there's some other things going on that are complications kind of involved from this whole autoimmune thing. Basically, my body hates itself and it's eating itself from the inside out. But that's what it is. That isn't what put me into the depression state. What put me into the depression was um, they had to fill out some paperwork for my long-term disability from work, and the doctor checked the box that said permanently could not be on an ambulance again. That's all I've done for 20 years. That's all I knew. That to me defined who I was. And at that moment, I went into the deepest, darkest place because for me personally, it was that's what mattered. being on an ambulance and taking care of other people, that's how I mattered. And all of a sudden it didn't exist anymore. And I didn't know what to do. And I was on my way to the grocery store. My veteran had stayed at home and was working here. And of course, with the events of the world, we travel with a gun. It's something we do. Um, I was to the point that I literally was going to pull over and use the gun because I didn't feel like I mattered at that moment. But by the grace of God, a friend was standing in his front yard who was a paramedic, and I pulled into his front yard that happened to be right at the intersection. Handed him my gun, and I said, "Just take this." No questions asked. He took it, and that moment saved my life. And when I got home and was talking to my veteran, it was, don't do this. You matter to me. So when we fail to say that you matter, it spirals people into a place that we just don't need to be. And so I think that as the veteran side, they've seen things or done things and been around situations, and they, especially with the events of the world today, they feel like everything they did doesn't matter anymore. That all the stuff that they did and all the sacrifices that they made and the lives that unfortunately they took or watching others die, it happened in vain. So they feel like they don't matter. And then when you flip to the spouse side and to the loved one side, we sit here and we help them and we do the best we can by them. And an argument ensues, or um, unfortunately, we tend to tap out at the people and become angry or at the people and lash out at the people we love the most. And so a lot of hurtful things are said. And when the hurtful things are said, we feel like we don't matter. And so the numbers of spouses and family members that are at their wits' end, they are taking their lives. We know there's a movement called 2022 to none because the statistics show that the death rate, suicide rate among veterans is about 22 a day. And when again, I did some more research, and I will post that link to our page today. Um, it actually came from the VA, so it is very accurate and honest information when it comes to how they're doing the numbers now. But what happened was they didn't like the way my poor baby is dog is barking, so I'm making sure there's nobody here. Anyway, sorry. So they didn't like the way it was being reported, and they've changed the parameters so the numbers are now skewed. So it's appearing that there's 17 a day, which is still 17 too many, are killing themselves. What numbers are no longer accounted for are the number of homeless that are not in the system, the number that are not reported to the VA. They've changed parameters around, so they're reclassifying some numbers. The number of spouses and life partners and committed partners and their families that are watching their loved ones go through this and feeling like they can't help any longer, those numbers are also not in the mix. So why the legitimate number may be 22 or 17 kind of varies, the actual number is so much higher. And we sit here and we close our eyes to this like it doesn't matter. We sweep it under the carpet. And Carl and I were talking about this on our way home from Jacksonville yesterday, that the Vietnam era veterans, they really were treated like they didn't matter. And they became quickly the largest percentage of homeless veteran population right after the Vietnam War because, sorry, y'all, there was nobody to be their advocate and be their voice, and they became the unwanted. And you talk about feeling like you don't matter. They became that, and that became the precursor. And as much as you want to say, the tragedies that were there, they were horrific. But if you have to look at the good side, and there is never a good side to people taking their own lives and being discarded, but they were instrumental in opening up people's eyes to seeing PTSD is real. Veterans are really killing themselves. What we went through is legitimate. They began that process. And I know that as we go through this, we're seeing more and more of it, but people don't want to talk about it. We don't want to discuss suicide. We don't want to say, as a family member, as someone who knows someone, well, how did they die? Oh, they killed themselves. You don't say that. You don't just go up and say, my son killed himself today. It's like it's a stigma because as it flips through the pages, my son killed himself, my daughter killed herself. It becomes, well, as a parent, I didn't do enough. Or as a spouse, I didn't do enough. And people say, well, you could have done better. Or what did I have signs that you missed? Ryan McNutt had signs. He posted them. His friends in the article literally said they tried. They couldn't stop it. So the bigger picture is over the course of time, Ronnie McNutt felt like he didn't matter. Over the course of time, my friend that took his life that was a paramedic, he had a wife, 2 kids, and he had made it known how he felt. And there were other people who talked to him that day. But in his mind, he felt like he didn't matter and that the world would be better off without him because he also had some medical issues going on. And he felt like it was going to be a bigger burden to his family. So he felt like he just didn't matter. And we have to stop that. We have to look at this as you do matter. Every single life matters. Every life. My friend Shauna from Behind the Surface podcast, when we did a PSA for prevention, and I was so honored and so blessed to be part of this because suicide has touched all of us. And the PSA is on our pages and whatever, on social media and theirs as well. When she told her story, that she is sitting there with her baby in one arm and her husband with a gun to his head in front of her. That's the real side of what we face. And blessed, and by the grace of God, Shauna still has a husband and her children. But when you get to that point that you just feel you don't matter, it's tough. And being the spouse and the partner, the life partner, we get stressed and we get tired and we get angry and we feel like we don't matter. And then we hear this, I don't want to make a change. He needs to make the change, or they need to make the change. And they may. But what happens if we don't? Then which one of our lives don't matter? And which one of us at some point is going to end our own life? people who've come together for loving my veteran. The five of us that are very, very, very much heartfelt into this experience. Those of us that are here every moment of the day, at some point, all of us have. It is by the grace of God that we're here. Jeremy shared his story with us and sharing it on our stuff as well. He was at his wit's end. He was standing in his garage smoking a cigarette and was ready to end it all. And all of a sudden he realized his son was upstairs. And it was that he called the suicide hotline. And he talked to someone for a few hours. Because at that point, his life as a parent mattered more. And that becomes critical in what we do. Critical in what we do. Our lives matter. Shauna sits here and goes, Amen. It was God's grace that stepped in every single time. And that one time was just the first that I had experienced. Depression is ugly. And it takes over. And when you're hurting and when you're bitter and when you're mad and when you're in that place, you don't think rationally. So it's a culmination of bad experiences that get you to that deep, 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 dark place. And so when you're in that deepest, darkest place and somebody says, well, you matter to me, you're like, but I didn't matter to you 20 minutes ago. I didn't matter to you 3 days ago. I didn't seem like I mattered to you 6 weeks ago. So no matter how bad things are, you have to let them know they matter. You have to know you matter. And you have to reach out to people. You have to reach out to people who will support you and love you. And we talk about the VA and that we don't like this or we don't like that about what they do. Let's get realistic here. They do the best they can. They're not necessarily giving you quality because the quantity is so big. The quantity of people who need help is so big that the quality of care they can give suffers. Quality they can give suffers. So where do you go from there? When the one place they send you to, because when you get out of the military and you're done and they've reprogrammed you to be this way, they pat you on the back and they say, have a nice life. They don't give you the skills. I mean, at least when you went in, they trained you in whatever and gave you a gun and said, here, this is how you use it. And by the way, here's your ammo. This is what we're going to do. Then when they get out, they take all that away from you. They pat you on the back and they say, nice life. Oh, and you have a problem? Well, I'm sure it wasn't caused by anything we did. That's on you. And now they're having to answer to that. And the quantity of people is so large that we're trying to fix it after the fact and not during the fact. It's so big that we're losing the quality. So we rely now on other outside organizations like ourselves, like Behind the Surface, where we can become a resource to each other, where we can become that support system for each other, where for the first time, we're not afraid to say suicides happen in people. People are depressed. People are dying. But suicide and depression do not define me. I'm not defined by my depression. I'm not defined by my autoimmune disorder. My other half is not defined by his PTSD. My other half has a heart that is massive. Every day he makes a point to tell me I'm beautiful. And y'all see this? You know his eyes is messed up from the PTSD thing going on here because this is not beautiful this morning. This is raw natural. So just live with it. But he tells me every single day that I matter. People don't get it. He is not defined by what he has. I'm looking at Shauna's replies to this. Her husband is not PTSD. He's her husband. He's her children's father. He is the one who picks her up when she's down. He is somebody. Damon, and Michelle, Damon. We had the best conversation this morning because his job was to take troops to the front line, but also pick them up. And where you're taking somebody to that front line, it's normal and whole. You're bringing it back mangled. Talk about feeling like guilty or your life doesn't matter. That's a pretty tough thing to do. And nobody went to him and they patted him on the back and said, have a great life. Not, thank you for holding John's hand when you were the last person he saw. Not, thank you for being there to comfort him in those last moments of his life. Nobody said that to him. Nobody said, Damon, what you did mattered. Nobody said to mine that going ahead of the group and looking for dangers mattered. Nobody said to the training guy that you've trained these people over and over and over again to be the best that they can be, that you mattered. Nobody said that. They said, have a nice life. You're on your own. Nobody said to the spouses who sat at home and watched the crap come in their living room on their news, because heaven forbid we don't embed the news people right up in the military, where you're seeing things happen and you're praying to God you're not seeing your spouse's face on the dead soldiers that are laying on the ground. Nobody said to those spouses, your life matters and what you do for your service member matters. I was a Navy wife first, and I can remember being told, you didn't come in your husband's seat. No, I didn't. But when you dumped him out, I was all he had. Nobody told me that. Nobody cared to tell me that. So am I having my angry rage this morning? Yeah, I am. Because everybody's life matters. We are not statistics. We are not numbers. We are people. I have 2 children. I matter to them. I am my mom's daughter. I matter to her. Me not taking in that split second and putting a permanent end to a temporary feeling, because of that, my mom still has a daughter. My kids still have a mother. My soulmate still has a partner in this life. Every one of you matters. You have a purpose. You may not feel like it today, but you do. Our veterans have a purpose. And it wasn't just the purpose they serve, they have a purpose today. This amazing group of people that I work with personally and that we, by the grace of God, came in contact with, these people matter. And if what we do today can save one veteran, one family member, one person, then every sleepless night we've spent prepping, recording, researching, Googling, talking to, opening up our hearts, filling up our lives mattered. And for the people who are very involved in these projects, I have to give a shout out to our other halves. Because, like I said, PTSD doesn't define them. It's not a total thing in our life. But when we take on a project like this, we bring PTSD into our living room all the time. They may not be having that event, but when we're researching, talking about messaging, loving each other, and loving people through their darkness, we bring it into our house, into our living room every single day. And when I looked at mine and I said, "Are you okay with this?" Tears filled up in his eyes and he said, "Yeah, because if I can save one of my brothers or sisters, what I'm going through matters." My challenge for you today is to tell somebody that they matter. Not when they're necessarily in their deepest, darkest spot, but today, tell them they matter. I don't know how well we can see this, and I'm gonna fix it in the camera the best so that you can see this. Y'all, this gentleman is Ronnie McNutt. He wasn't a number or a statistic. He was a person, and his life mattered. He ended it. His life mattered. I just need to thank all the people who loved and supported me through my deepest, darkest moment, so that I can tell you that your life matters. So I can tell you that you make a difference. So you can tell somebody else. So we can stop this number, as Libby put it in her thing. It's an epidemic. Now we run around with masks on to protect us from a pandemic of an unknown something. We know about this and we can't stop this. Come on, people. We know this is happening. If we'd spend just a little bit of time putting these numbers out like we've done with COVID, giving a little help to people who need it, these numbers wouldn't be so high. I want y'all to have a blessed day. I want you to know your life matters. We are here for you. Other people are here for you. Reach out to them. Tell them, I need help today. There's a national suicide hotline. Call it if you need it. Reach out to somebody today when you're in that place so we can all tell you your life matters. I'm going for the day in a half an hour. Please go join our friends at Behind the Service on their website. Pop into their little Zoom meeting. We're going to have some coffee and some collaboration. Um, and it is a very uplifting experience to join a community who is so amazing. To be able to know that with them, your life does matter. With us, your life matters. Have a blessed day.